As a kid, I was always fascinated with history. I read about it, I watched documentaries, but now I want to visit and walk the ground of those historic places that I've spent years studying. Join me on my trek, History Adventures. Today on History Adventures, we're going to visit the Little Bighorn Battlefield. I'm going to break this down into a series of videos to make it easier to follow. In this video, we will cover the basics of the Sioux campaign of 1876. We will then follow Custer's approach to the Little Bighorn. The 1876 Sioux campaign was planned to force the Sioux and Cheyenne back to their reservations using a three-pronged approach. Colonel John Gibbon and his troops marched east from Fort Ellis in western Montana on March 30th. Brigadier General George Crook and his troops moved north from Fort Fetterman in Wyoming on May 29th. Brigadier General Alfred Terry and his men, including Custer, moved westward from Fort Abraham Lincoln on May 17th. On June 17th, Crook's men fight in the Battle of the Rosebud. Crook's men controlled the battlefield after the battle, but were surprised by the total number of Native American warriors. Crook made the decision to withdraw from the area and wait for reinforcements. Both Terry and Gibbon were unaware of the battle and continued towards the Bighorn and Little Bighorn Rivers, the believed location of the Native American camps. On June 22nd, Custer and the 7th Cavalry are ordered by Terry to begin reconnaissance in force along the Rosebud Creek. On the evening of June 24th, Custer's scouts report the camp is close. They have been on a high overlook known as the Crow's Nest looking into the Little Bighorn Valley. Custer and his men stop in an area near present-day Busby, Montana, late on June 24th. Let's take a look around Busby, Montana, also known as Custer's last camp. This camp is roughly 25 miles from the battlefield. Also in Busby is the monument and grave of Cheyenne Chief Two Moons, who fought in the Battle of Little Bighorn. In the monument were artifacts from the Battle of the Little Bighorn, but in the 60s it was broken into and those artifacts were taken. Custer's Indian scouts are sent ahead and find that the trail turns towards the Little Bighorn and the camp is getting closer. With this information, Custer orders a night march into the Wolf Mountains. The troops follow the trail that will cross into the Little Bighorn Valley. This is the general area that the troops move during the night march. At dawn on the 25th, Custer and his troops are heading into the Wolf Mountains and the area known as the Crow's Nest. Custer's scouts could see the Indian camp's pony herd and other things that identified the Indian village off in the distance. Custer was not able to see what the scouts were seeing down in the valley. The plan was to keep the troops hidden in the Wolf Mountains, make a night march, and attack the village at dawn on the 26th. Early on the morning of the 25th, Custer's scouts and some of his troops spot Lakota and Cheyenne warriors in the area. Custer, fearing that the element of surprise has been lost and that the Indian camp will scatter, makes the decision to attack the camp immediately. Unknown to Custer, these warriors don't warn the village, but the attack plan continues. Many of Custer's Indian scouts warn him that the size of the village is very large with many warriors. Unfazed by the warnings from his scouts, Custer and his men move towards the village. They cross what is known as the Divide and towards the Bighorn Valley. Taking a look at the area the troops have been moving, the Crow's Nest is in this area. The divide that the troops have just crossed is in this area. It is in this general area that Custer decides to split his command. It is roughly noon on June 25th, 1876. Captain Benteen, with 3 companies, 125 men, is ordered to scout over the ridges looking for other Indian villages and protecting Custer's left flank. Major Reno, with 3 companies, 140 men, is ordered to move parallel with Custer with his 5 companies of 210 men. They will continue down towards the Little Bighorn Valley and the Indian camp. Lastly, the pack train with ammunition and supplies, 125 men, will follow Reno and Custer towards the valley. This is the area that the troops are moving. Benteen and his men move over these ridges, scouting the area. They are searching for other Indian camps and protecting Custer's left flank. Reno and Custer move along this area in the valley. They follow what is known as Reno Creek. Benteen and his troops move out and cross these ridges, scouting the area. They get to what is known as Valley 3, and from a high ridge they don't see any Indian villages in the distance. They move up what is known as No Name Creek to rejoin Custer, who is moving on Reno Creek. Custer and Reno have moved further down the valley. Custer and his troops are on one side of the creek, Reno and his troops on the other. They have already passed No Name Creek and continue past what is known as the morass. As they move down the valley, the scouts spot a lone teepee on the side of a hill. Custer orders Reno to cross the creek and consolidate the groups. Custer and a few of his staff go to the lone teepee and find a dead Indian warrior inside. Custer has no idea that the Battle of the Rosebud has taken place several days before, and this warrior wounded during the battle has later died. Custer's scouts let him know that the Indians that were near the lone teepee are now running towards the large Indian camp on the Little Bighorn. Custer orders Reno to start down the valley at a trot with Custer and his troops following. The time is roughly 2:15. At roughly 2:30, Benteen and his troops exit Valley 3 and find the Custer-Reno Trail along Reno Creek. They turn and arrive at the morass approximately 10 minutes later. Benteen and his troops stop at the morass to water and rest the horses. The pack train is roughly a mile behind following Reno Creek. At approximately 2:45, Reno crosses the North Fork of Reno Creek and moves over to the left bank. Reno and his troops continue towards the Little Bighorn River. Custer and his men stop at the North Fork to water and rest their horses. At roughly 2:53, Reno and his troops stop at what is known as Ford A on the Little Bighorn River to water their horses. Just before 3, the pack train arrives at the morass, and Benteen and his men move out following Reno Creek towards the valley. In the next few minutes, the Battle of the Little Bighorn will begin. In the next episode, we will follow the opening portions of the battle. Thanks for watching this episode of History Adventures. Please like and comment on the video. And if you can, please subscribe to our page and share it with everyone you know that's a history buff. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next episode.